I've been doing a ton of research on iPhone 13 leaks, and I've discovered some very interesting details and new patents that Apple literally just published, and they all have to do with Apple's LiDAR scanner. And honestly, it hasn't really gotten that much use out of it, since most people don't really think or care about it that much. But with everything that I've just discovered, I'm very confident that Apple had a genius master plan for LiDAR that they're only now going to be revealing with the launch of the iPhone 13, and this is going to revolutionize the entire industry. But before I get into that, let me first explain the basics of LiDAR and what it's meant to do so that you can fully understand Apple's new feature. LiDAR stands for light detection and ranging, and its entire purpose is to measure the exact distance of an object. The way it works is by sending out pulses of light waves and then measuring the time it takes to return back to the LiDAR unit. And if something is in the way, like another vehicle, it can accurately measure the distance of surrounding objects and map out a 3D map in real time. And this is basically what Apple packed into the 2020 iPad Pro early last year, all within this small hole behind the camera bump, which is very impressive. iPhondo on YouTube showed off an excellent example of LiDAR in action, so you can see an array of infrared laser dots projecting onto the object and reflecting back to the LiDAR scanner to accurately measure distance and 3D depth. And by the way, this is exactly how Apple's Face ID system works, with dots projecting onto your face and then being scanned to measure your precise bone structure to confirm that it's actually you. But going back to the rear LiDAR scanner, we finally now have apps like Canvas that can put it to good use, allowing you to use your iPad Pro to scan a room and turn it into a CAD file, which can be very useful. But now, with all of that said and explained, let's get into Apple's master plan for LiDAR on the iPhone 13 Pro and why it's going to revolutionize the entire industry. Over the past couple of years, I've started to notice that Apple's portrait mode photos have gotten incredibly good at edge detection and depth of field, specifically by giving photos a very natural blur roll-off in the background, as you can see in these incredibly good-looking photos. On top of that, Apple enabled the new night mode portrait feature, which uses the LiDAR scanner to give you awesome portrait photos at night. And taking it even further, Apple is actually using the LiDAR scanner for video recording at night to help with autofocus, with there being a huge difference compared to previous iPhones. So Apple is clearly utilizing the LiDAR scanner to get accurate measurements of distance and depth to help with everything from photos to video. But now, based on leaks and rumors, along with actual patents from Apple, I believe that they're going to be taking smartphone photography to the next level and creating perhaps the biggest demand for iPhones ever seen before. Don't believe me? Well, there are reports that Apple is boosting iPhone 13 production because of very high anticipated demand. Specifically, they're going to be pumping out 90 million iPhones for the initial launch instead of the 75 million for the iPhone 12, which was actually the first super cycle update since the iPhone 6, selling 100 million units within the first 7 months of its launch. So here's the million-dollar question. What makes Apple so sure that the iPhone 13 will outsell the super cycle iPhone 12? Well, there are a couple of new features we're expecting, like Wi-Fi 6E, which actually comes with the new 6 GHz bands, unlike Wi-Fi 6. There's also the long-awaited 120Hz ProMotion feature that's finally expected to come on the iPhone 13 Pro, which I've personally been waiting for years. But based on leaks, rumors, and newly discovered patents from Apple themselves, I believe that the banger feature is actually going to be using LiDAR, so let's get right into that. According to Max Weinbach and Everything Apple Pro, portrait mode will be overhauled greatly on the iPhone 13 by using a new process that combines data from the lenses as well as LiDAR to give much better edge detection. But the revolution is gonna be with the brand new portrait video recording mode, which will make iPhone video recording look like professional camera video, complete with background blur that you can adjust in post, which I've dreamed about for years. Now, Apple won't be the first ones to release this feature, since Samsung did it years ago with the Galaxy S10, but when we tried it out, it was basically terrible and completely unusable because it didn't have any sort of LiDAR scanner and the software sucked. And even on the brand new Galaxy S21 Ultra, it still looks pretty bad with a noticeable edge around anybody that you try to record, with the OnePlus 9 Pro doing a little bit better, but it's definitely not perfect, and the background isn't even changing in this test. So for Apple to properly pull this off, they would likely need a mixture of a few different things, including much more processing performance, which we're expecting with the new A15 Bionic chip, and they would also need a brand new process like Max Weinbach mentioned in his leak. And finally, they would probably also need a second generation LiDAR scanner. And guess what? DigitTimes revealed earlier this year that Apple will be in fact using a new generation LiDAR scanner on the iPhone 13 Pro. And because of that, it's very likely that this new portrait video mode will be exclusive to the iPhone 13 Pro models, which would be great for Apple since it forces users to upgrade to get portrait video, which I think is going to cause that massive wave of demand that Apple is expecting for the iPhone 13. And on top of that, if we looked at leaked schematics and dummy units of the iPhone 13 models, you can see a couple of interesting things. First off, the LiDAR scanner on the 13 Pro is actually quite a bit larger than on the 12 Pro, giving more proof that a second-gen LiDAR scanner is coming. And then looking at the dummy units, none of the standard iPhone 13 models seem to come with LiDAR, giving more evidence that the portrait video mode will be exclusive to the Pro models, at least for this year. So I personally believe that this new portrait video mode with LiDAR has always been the end game or the master plan for the iPhone 13 Pro, because if they can pull this off, they will literally revolutionize the entire industry, just like portrait mode did many years ago on the iPhone 7 Plus. And if you're skeptical of this feature coming this year, I've actually got even more evidence to support this idea on top of Max Weinbach's leaks and the whole higher demand thing. At Apple's WWDC 2021 event, they revealed a brand new feature for FaceTime, which is of course portrait mode video, which nobody was expecting. And when I tested it out, I was surprised by how good it worked, being able to accurately track my head and blur out the background. But the most surprising thing is that it also works with iPhones and iPads without Face ID, specifically devices that have the A12 chip for processing. So the fact that Apple added this feature to Face ID last month hints at Apple bringing rear-facing portrait mode video to the iPhone 13 Pro. And if you need even more evidence, let's get into the recently published patents that Apple has been working on, pointing us to an article by Apple Insider's William Gallagher. The first patent is titled Geometry Encoding of Duplicate Points, which has Apple using a new hardware encoder to compress spatial information for points included in a three-dimensional volumetric content representation, which uses LiDAR. And William explained this patent by simply mentioning that Apple will be compressing LiDAR image data, sort of like how JPEG compresses a raw photo to save a ton of storage space. Now moving on to the next patent by the same author, Apple goes even further by mentioning that LiDAR data can contain millions of volumetric data, which may be costly and time-consuming to store and transmit. So a way of compressing the data will increase the responsiveness of the system. Now I want you to focus on a few keywords like storing and transmitting LiDAR data, because the next patent is gonna be a banger. This one is titled Video-Based Point Cloud Compression with Predicted Patches. So Apple is basically applying similar compression methods to video that has, quote, associated spatial information. And this patent was created by an Apple employee who previously worked on real-time LiDAR surface tracking. So if you're struggling to understand what all of this means, let me break it down for you. Apple is going to be enabling portrait mode video by compressing LiDAR data in real time while recording video using a new hardware encoder within the A15 chip. Doing this will save a lot of processing power so that you can still have very high quality video recording like we have today. But going deep into that last patent, Apple talks a lot about predicted patches within 2D video video image frames, which means that Apple will be able to reconstruct and basically fine-tune the blur edging in real time to basically make it look perfect and natural instead of having the choppy blur edging mess that you see on the Galaxy S21 Ultra. And going even further, all of that LiDAR 3D data will be stored within the metadata of each and every portrait mode video clip to allow you to adjust the depth of field of the blur in post, which is exactly what Max Weinbach leaked earlier this year, making his leak seem even more legit. And looking at that last patent again, it also mentioned the compression and decompression of LiDAR data, which is what's going to allow you to edit the video in post to fully remove the blur, but then later on, come back to the video and add the blur back in if you'd like to. This is going to be extremely important because on current Samsung phones, you can't delete the background blur if it gets really messed up and looks horrible, which basically ruins the entire video clip. But with the iPhone 13 Pro, you're going to be able to get rid of it in post. And since all of that LiDAR data will be contained forever within each portrait mode video that you take, it makes sense why Apple would want to compress that data to save as much storage space as possible, which was in the first patent that I mentioned. So if you take all of these patents along with the other evidence that I showed you, including the second generation LiDAR scanner, which would likely be required to make all of this work, I'm pretty confident that Apple will be revealing this new portrait video mode feature alongside the iPhone 13 Pro. Now, if you totally disagree with my thoughts, then go ahead and comment your thoughts down in the comment section below. But if you enjoyed this video, click that circle button to subscribe and definitely check out those two videos right over there. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video.